Keeping the Sabbath holy, and resting on the seventh day, was a special commandment between God and Israel.
It is a sign forever between me and the people of Israel, that in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed.
For the Jewish people the Sabbath was a holy festival, and they were too.
You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God brought you out from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore the Lord your God commanded you to keep the Sabbath day.
Every one of the 10 Commandments was repeated in the New Testament except for the observance of the Sabbath. And Jesus shook up the Jewish leaders with his views on the Sabbath. When Jesus was walking through some grain fields on the Sabbath, and his disciples broke off the heads of the grain, and ate them, the Pharisees criticized them, and Jesus for breaking the Sabbath.
And he said to them, The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath.
The Sabbath was a special day, set apart as holy, a time to rest and worship God. Yet during the first century the Jewish leaders had made the laws of Moses as a narrow and binding set of rules to follow, including the law about the Sabbath. Jesus was correcting that perspective, and announcing that he was Lord over the Sabbath, and it was for our benefit. The early Christians were feeling the lingering effects of the strict observance of the Jewish festival celebrations, including the Sabbath. Paul addressed this when he wrote to the church in Colossae.
Therefore let no one pass judgment on you in questions of food and drink, or with regard to a festival or a new moon or a Sabbath. These are a shadow of the things to come, but the substance belongs to Christ.
These believers were feeling the pressure to continue to observe the Jewish Sabbath as their forefathers had done. Yet the early church followers of Jesus were worshiping with each other on the Lord's Day.
I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and I heard behind me a loud voice like a trumpet,
which was the first day of the week, as opposed to the last day of the week. In fact, for years, the first century church observed both the Jewish Sabbath and the Lord's Day. They began worshiping together on Sunday primarily because Jesus rose on the first day of the week.
Now after the Sabbath, toward the dawn of the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb.
And Jesus appeared to his followers more than once on the first day of the week.
8 days later, his disciples were inside again, and Thomas was with them. Although the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, Peace be with you.
This then became a pattern.
On the first day of the week, when we were gathered together to break bread, Paul talked with them, intending to depart on the next day, and he prolonged his speech until midnight. On the first day of every week, each of you is to put something aside and store it up as he may prosper, so that there will be no collecting when I come.
From that time forward, Christians observed the set-aside day of rest on the first day of each week.